Local people, important issues. CBS 10 WILM's weekly focus on the Lower Cape Fear region. This is Byline Wilmington with your host, Don Ansell.
Recently, 90-year-old screen legend Mickey Rooney told a Senate panel about his real-life experience of elder abuse, shedding much-needed light on an underreported issue. New statistics reveal growing numbers of the elderly are being abused physically, psychologically, and financially. We start off this morning with Tracie Thurston Carrico, a daughter who says her father was abused by a family member, and then later on in the program we'll be joined by elder law attorney Lisa Salines-Mondello, who represents families and victims dealing with these issues. But first, Tracie Thurston Carrico, who, by the way, came all the way from Kentucky to do this show. We appreciate you coming in. And
thank you for having me.
I know you were here just like 2 weeks ago when
yes.
Tracie sent a 4-page letter about her father's case to us. And what I'm going to ask you to do is just read the first paragraph. We'll put it up on the screen for our viewers because I think it gives a good capsule of the issue we're talking about and your father's situation.
Okay.
Read that.
Sure. In January 2010, my 64-year-old father, who suffered from dementia and Parkinson's disease, was driven 10 hours from North Carolina to Kentucky by his wife of 20-plus years and abandoned on my doorstep of my house. His wife had secretly divorced him and had him sign over 100% of the marital assets to her and all of the marital debt to him, including a 6-figure IRS debt. He could neither read nor write at the time he entered into that agreement.
Okay, and as I said, this is a 4-page detailed letter, and we're going to go into some of that detail as we talk to Tracie. What made you write the letter?
You know, that's a good question. I think we had gone through the court system and the legal system to try and help my father and get just half of the marital assets back for his care, and we just got nowhere. And I just became increasingly concerned that this issue, that I wasn't alone probably in the issue, and that it needed to be brought to light.
And your dad suffered from advanced dementia?
Yes, it was progressive degenerative dementia, and had for probably since around 2000.
And when did you notice it?
You know, we noticed him being forgetful. He had difficulty playing Uno with my son. He couldn't see the numbers, and the numbers on the Uno cards are very big. And we just thought it was kind of being absent-minded. When we were coming to Wilmington to visit for Christmas,
This past Christmas?
No, this was a few years ago when they first told us that they thought maybe he'd had some mini strokes because they wanted to prepare us for when
How often would you visit him? You were in Kentucky with your family.
Yes.
And we want to thank your husband, Jay, for driving all that way with
yes.
you also. You were in Kentucky, and your dad was here in Wilmington. You're from Wilmington.
No, actually, we're from Lexington.
Oh, okay.
In
so
Kentucky.
Your dad moved?
Yeah, he moved here probably 15 years ago.
Okay.
Just loved
How
it.
often would you see him here?
At least a couple times a year we would come here, and then he would come to Kentucky, but you all have an ocean here, so my children preferred to come visit him, but at least a couple times a year, usually spring break, summer, and then maybe Christmas.
What was your relationship with your dad like?
It was great. I missed him when he left, but I was so happy because he'd always wanted to live here at the beach. He was just a fun-loving guy, just loved family, loved friends. He always would just say his favorite time was when we were just all together. And one of my stepbrothers lives in Pittsburgh. We're big Steelers fans, and so he would love when they'd all come down.
The stepbrother is the brother of the woman that married your father,
Yes.
your stepmother?
Yes.
Now, what happened? Did you have a decent relationship with your stepmother?
Yeah.
You did? You liked her?
Yes.
And you were glad your dad had married her?
In the beginning, it was a little rough. All the kids were around 14, teenagers, so the change was rough when he married her very soon after he left my mother.
I see.
But you know, we just really repaired how it was kind of a rough beginning. We became just a close family. It's been difficult because I didn't just lose my father in this. I kind of lost that family. And I do, I'm very...
Is the family divided now?
Yes,
yeah.
And the one stepbrother in Pittsburgh I was close to, we had children the same age. And so he was the one that still there was a little contact. But with my stepmother and the other two children, they don't talk to me anymore.
Now, you maintain that your stepmother basically stripped your dad of all his financial resources.
Yes.
And left him and your family with debt and a lot of debt, and divorced him without anyone knowing it.
Right. It was back in October of '09, and contact became limited, and we started getting
Contact with your father?
Yes, he had a cell phone, but he couldn't. Sometimes you had to help him open it. He couldn't open it real well, but we spoke frequently, and the contact was getting less. So we started, and she had approached. One thing interesting about the situation: my father's parents are still living, my grandparents, and she had approached my grandparents for money. And so that's when that topic started.
This is your father's parents?
Yes.
Your stepmother approached your father's parents for money?
For money. So we started asking questions. They run a successful business here in Wilmington.
Your parents, your dad and your stepmother ran a business?
Yes.
Okay.
And so my grandparents just said, well, tell us about your finances so we can figure out how to do this, because my dad was going to need money for care. And she wasn't forthcoming with their financial situation. So that's kind of when all the suspicion started, like what's going on. And I even had a conversation with her one time, and I said, are you thinking about a divorce? And she was very insulted and even wrote an email saying, how could you dare think I would divorce your father? And actually at the time she wrote the email, they were already divorced. So she filed for divorce in North Carolina, where the law states you have to wait a year to get a divorce. And with all of the family questioning her, I guess she realized she didn't have a year. So she put my dad in the car, drove him to Florida, where you can get a divorce in 3 weeks, and swore under oath that they were both residents of Florida. They've never lived in Florida. She obtained the divorce there, and the divorce settlement, which gave her the business, all the assets, and left all the debt to him, including 2 foreclosed properties and a 6-figure IRS debt and lots of credit card debt. And prior to doing that, she had visited the Mayo Clinic in Jacksonville and a local doctor here in Wilmington and asked them to sign a paper that my dad was competent to understand a divorce. They both wrote that he was absolutely not
Well, how could
competent.
she get a divorce in Florida if she couldn't prove competency? You don't need to in Florida?
That is the part, I have no idea. If you were to look at the divorce...
We'll ask our elder law attorney when we...
His signature on the divorce settlement doesn't even mimic that of a kindergartner. It's not on the line, it's squiggly, I don't know how someone...
So tell us about the day your stepmother shows up at your home in Kentucky with your father.
Well, it was probably one of the most shocking days of my life. After we discovered that she had divorced him on an internet search, a good friend of mine found it on Google a month after.
Because that's a public record.
Because it's a public record.
Okay.
My stepfather actually said that's a public record if she's done that, so we found it.
Your stepfather?
My stepfather suggested that we look, on the internet.
That's your stepmother's ex-husband?
No, that's my mom's husband.
Your mother, okay.
Sorry, blended family.
Gotcha.
So my good friend found it, and I announced to the family angrily in an email that this had happened, and I was angry. Then our contact with my dad was almost completely cut off. We didn't know where he was. We were told that she had sent him to Miami. This is when my 2 siblings would not answer my calls.
Her children?
Yes. My stepbrother in Pittsburgh. We still were trying to work it out. So a month passed. We had no idea where my dad was. My husband and I were sitting on the couch. It was January 30th. We're big UK fans, as my dad is, and we were getting ready to watch the UK Vandy game in our sweats, lounging on the couch, and my doorbell rings, and I look through the window, and it was her with my dad and her youngest son. We opened the door. Couldn't even take a breath. I just embraced my dad because I hadn't seen him in 4 weeks and had not spoken to him in 4 weeks. And as I was hugging him, she gently kind of led him into my foyer, put a suitcase down, and left. We had no idea it was coming. I didn't know doctor's appointments. She didn't
say anything to you?
I had filed for guardianship at the time.
I mean,
she said nothing to my father.
She walked away. She brought your father, put him in the door.
As she
you
turned
opened the door, and
left,
she and her son turned and walked away.
Yes, she kind of mumbled, "You wanted guardianship, you got it," and walked away and got in the car and left.
And what kind of shape was your father in?
He was kind of dazed. He asked us a lot if he was in North Carolina, and we had to say, no, Dad, it's Kentucky. And then he asked where they went and why they hadn't stayed. And it was very hard. I didn't know whether to explain it to him or it was just very hard.
How did you find out everything that had transpired? You maintain there was fraud, deceit,
Yes.
illegal activity.
Yeah. The more papers we were able to get access to, at that point when we filed for guardianship, we had attorneys involved. My uncle was wonderful in helping with that side of it. I was kind of dealing with really care of my father. We had to find, help for him. I had to find his doctor's appointments. We had to Google the medicine that she left in a grocery bag because I didn't know. So we really operated day to day.
And your dad passed away when?
On New Year's Eve, this past New Year's Eve.
At where?
And we had him in a place called Crestview Nursing Home. And he had a good experience there.
What's the status of all the debt and the case that you brought? You did bring a case against your stepmother?
Our only purpose was to try to we were going to overturn the divorce and just create a 50-50 divorce like normal people get, just so he would have 50% of his assets to care with assisted living or in-home care. The case in North Carolina, it just kept going on and on. It was not treated with urgency. And after months, they decided, it's not our jurisdiction. You got to start over in Florida because that's where the divorce took place.
Okay,
so.
why don't we stop? We'll take a break, and then we're going to bring Lisa Salines-Mondello on, who's an elder law attorney. We'll talk more about this case and some of the other issues that surround the issue of elder abuse. Stay with us. We'll be right back.